button right there. So it'll turn this green light over there. You can do it over here too if you so wanted to. I said either way will work.
Are we ready? Are we oh.
We're
The
good.
broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Santee City Council meeting. And tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Eric Keene, if you wouldn't mind. And the invocation will be presented by Gary Lawton from the Calvary Chapel. And give me just 1 second, and I'll do a little bio for Gary. All right. So Calvary Chapel has served the needs of Santee for more than 30 years. The church is thriving at its location at the end of Summit Avenue and offers worship services on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday in their new worship facility, which is on Summit. Pastor Lawton has been senior pastor for 11 years, is married, and father of 4 grown children and 11 grandchildren. The church members regularly pray for the city council and its members, and we absolutely appreciate that. And we appreciate you being here tonight and praying for the council and wise decisions. Welcome. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you also. It's exciting to see you guys back in your chairs. Living life so normal.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Pray with you. Father, we thank you so much for your blessing and on our city and our country. We're grateful for the freedoms that were purchased at great cost. We thank you for our military, our police department, civil authorities, Lord, that maintain our freedoms and protect us. And we're also grateful, Lord, that the COVID cases have come way down. We pray for your healing touch on our city and state. We pray bless the doctors and nurses that have worked so hard during this season. And Lord, please comfort those families that have lost loved ones to this virus. I pray for our mayor and the council tonight, Lord, that you give them wisdom to govern the difficult issues that they're facing. Give them, Lord, a genuine understanding of the true needs of our people. Give them courage, too, Lord, to do what is right and just for our city and its citizens. Give them the ability, Lord, to work together in harmony, even when there's honest disagreement. And Lord, we're grateful for their service as well to our community. So please reward their sacrifices they make. Bless their homes, their families, and their businesses. Lord, guide and bless them tonight in their agenda. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Stand aside, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. As the pastor said, it is great to be here in person, and this is actually going to be the way it's going to be. We will not be having any more virtual council meetings after as of last meeting. So that's exciting to know. For those of you who are here and spread out, thanks for being here anyways, and whatnot. So tonight on the agenda, we have, well, first let me indicate that for the city clerk that all council members are present and accounted for. And the first proclamation tonight will be a Small Business Month proclamation, and Rob will be handling that. Vice Mayor McNellis. And who's coming down to accept that? Oh, there you are. I didn't even see you.
Hello, hello. There we go. And the people that keep us awake all day and all night. The Coffee Corner. I think you see every one of us in your store at one point or another, at least several times a week. So, starting off with a proclamation from the city of Santee, whereas the state of California has officially designated May 21 as Small Business Month to honor the contributions of entrepreneurial spirit of more than 4 million small businesses statewide. And whereas throughout the county, May is recognized as Small Business Month in recognition of the role of small businesses in creating 2/3 of the new jobs, net new jobs, and generating nearly half of all private sector employment. And whereas small businesses, business owners represent the cornerstone of every community, especially ours, by creating business opportunity, and investment, stimulating job growth and boosting the local economy. And whereas this past year, COVID-19 kicked us all in the backside and has caused, it didn't say that, by the way, and has caused unprecedented challenges and financial hardships for our small businesses, and they have responded with perseverance, commitment, and resiliency. And whereas the city of Santee encourages local support of these businesses so they can continue to compete, succeed, and grow. Now, therefore, I, Rob McNellis, Vice Mayor, on behalf of the Mayor, John Minto, and the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim May 21 as Small Business Month in the City of Santee. And I'll present this to our leader of the Santee Chamber of Commerce, Kristen Dare.
Thank you so much.
And before I pass this along, we also want to give the City of Santee wants to recognize with a certificate of recognition to the Coffee Corner as Small Business for the City of Santee for 2021. Small businesses are the cornerstone of every community, we already talked about that stuff, so it's the same thing we said before. But we would love to present this to Coffee Corner, both locations, because we love them both the same. Even though I like the one over by Home Depot, just saying. Doesn't have the drive-through, it's not as cool as yours, Dwayne, but it's still, that's where I love to go. You want to start this off?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to the City of Santee for recognizing small businesses. And obviously, these last 14 months have been more than challenging, if you will. And it's my honor and privilege and excitement tonight is just so large to be standing next to these two folks who really exemplify the highest level of integrity when we're talking about running a small business and, not just keeping your customers happy and treated with respect, but really just holding all that you need to. You're keeping your customers safe, you're following the rules, you're doing everything. You've been faced with every challenge under the sun, and perseverance, I think, was used in this proclamation here, and it's been my personal pleasure to watch you guys persevere during these times. So thank you. And Susie is on our board of directors for the Santee Chamber of Commerce, which is somewhat recent, and it's just been my privilege, my pleasure.
One of you was talking.
Now you don't have anything to say?
All right, well, can you hear me? We just want to say it's an honor to be a part of this community. It's been really cool to see through these troubled times how much support we've had from basically our neighbors. And so for us, it's just an honor to represent the other small businesses. We know their struggles. We've been side by side with them. And we just want to say we appreciate all of you guys and thank you for letting us be a part of this.
Yeah, thanks.
Don't go away.
Yep. By the way, Laura doesn't have to. All right, the next presentation will be to the Kiwanis Club, so I have Dan Bigford come down. And I know that's not listed actually on the agenda. Thanks, Rob. And but it's important that we make this presentation. And the rest of the members. Good to see y'all. We're going to need that. Dan, I'm going to hand this to you because you'll get that in just a moment. And then here's what I like to do is have you come down this way a little bit. That way we can try and get most of you into the shot. For those who don't really remember, did I give the wrong one out?
No, he has to wipe it down because I touched it. I got cooties.
Sorry, Dan, now you're infected. So for those who don't know, we have the television cameras up now around the chamber because everything's going to be televised eventually, and also you'll be able to see this meeting later on. So that's why it's important to try and get everybody into the shot now. So here's what I'm going to do, because I don't think we're all in the shot. You guys can see the cameras. Are we all in the shot? All right then. Here I am, not just the mayor, but I'm the director, I guess. And before I read this, I just want to say that the reason why I chose to make the presentation instead of having one of the other council members do this is because Kiwanis is very important to me. I first became involved in Kiwanis when I was 13 years old as a junior Kiwana and in City Heights. And it was there that I met a lot of men and women who became great mentors to me. So you guys are very important to me. And some of you have been around a while that I used to work with as a member of the Kiwanis Club. We're all getting older, I know. So anyways, Santee, California Proclamation. Glasses are steaming up. So, Kiwanis International is one of the largest service organizations in the world with more than 551,000 members of all ages and abilities in more than 80 nations. And whereas the members of the Kiwanis Club of Santee, California, are devoted to improving the world one child and one community at a time by seeking primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life. Whereas, in addition to improving the lives of children of Santee and in communities around the world, Kiwanis Club members promote the development of community leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellow personal growth, professional growth, and development, and community service. And whereas the first Kiwanis Club started its service in Detroit, Michigan, USA in 1915. So the organization's well over 100 years old. So, and the Kiwanis Club of Santee was formed on May 26, so it's exactly 50 years old today. So we want to congratulate you on that. So that was in 1971 and have faithfully served the youth of the city of Santee for 50 years. Even though the challenges of a pandemic, the Kiwanis Club of Santee provided programs for the benefit of Santee youth. These programs included providing 27 no-touch thermometers to the Santee School District to aid in the safe opening of our classrooms, providing scholarships to our graduating high school seniors to aid in the future academic achievements, and a very successful children's fishing derby to get the kids out to enjoy the fresh air and beauty found at Santee Lakes. The service provided by the Kiwanis Club of Santee will continue to have a positive impact on our community and citizens. Now, therefore, I, John Minto, Mayor of the City of Santee, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim this 26th day of May, 2021, as Kiwanis Club of Santee Day. In the City of Santee, and hereby call upon all citizens of the City of Santee thereof to render support to the members of the organization and to make themselves aware of Kiwanis International and the Kiwanis Club of Santee and those and whose members this day are providing meaningful service to children in our community. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do the photo, and then I'll have you speak. Okay. That way we can get that out of the way. One thing's for sure, when we look back, we'll know definitely when it was.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you.
Okay, let's make sure.
Right again? Just 1, 2? Yeah. Okay, maybe I just need to be a little closer. Thank you, Mayor Minto, City Council, and staff. We appreciate the being honored in such a way, but we really appreciate the City of Santee and being able to service the youth of Santee for over 50, for now today 50 years, and we're hoping for another 50. Of course, we don't hope we get around then, but we hope that somebody else is. And adding to our successes this year, in a very, very lean year of fundraising, we also had we sponsored the Easter sunrise services at Santee Lakes, and so in a year where we thought that we may not be able to give scholarships this year, we had such tremendous support from people like Councilman Dustin Trotter, who sponsored a scholarship through us by himself, to one of our members, Lou Fernandez, who gave an excessive amount of money so that we could have our scholarships out this year. So, this is a club that really cares, and they care all the way into their pocket. And so they won't let us fail. So I appreciate the honor, and thank you very much. Have I missed anything?
Well, I think one thing you might have missed is that if you go to the website for the Kiwanis Club of Santee, you might find a button there that says donate.
Yes. SanteeKiwanis.org, and there's a donate button there. Goes straight to your PayPal. Thank you.
Some of our members are not here tonight because they're giving out scholarships tonight.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here, everybody. It's so good seeing you all again. That takes us to our next proclamation, which will be the Military Appreciation Month, and that will be presented by Councilmember Dustin Trotter.
All right, can I get my representative from Miramar up here with me, please? Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, so I have the proclamation here tonight. I'm going to read, whereas in 1999, Congress declared May as National Military Appreciation Month to honor the sacrifices of the United States Armed Forces and the role they played in the history and development in our country. And whereas each year, the President of the United States issues proclamation reminding Americans to celebrate this patriotic month, to pay tribute to those who have sacrificed so much for our freedom. And whereas the month of May holds several military anniversaries and events, including Loyalty Day, Military Spouses Day, VE Day, Armed Forces Day, and of course, Memorial Day. And whereas the month of May gives the nation the opportunity to publicly pay tribute to all our military troops, both past and present. Now, therefore, him, John W. Minto, Mayor of Santee, on the behalf of the City Council, do hereby pause to recognize May 2021 as National Military Appreciation Month. And I hereby acknowledge the service and sacrifice in both active and former members of the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force, and National Guard, as well as the contribution of their spouses and families. I'd like to say a few words.
Just a couple. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you so much for this. I was planning on accepting it on behalf of the Marines, sailors, civilians, and family members aboard Miramar, but I'll accept it on behalf of the entire armed forces. So thank you very much.
Hoorah.
But in all honesty, Colonel Dockery sends his thanks and is very sad he can't be here tonight. But on behalf of him and those 15,000 folks that live, work, and exist aboard Miramar, we thank you for the city's support. And really, Miramar's only growing, and we're looking forward to the continued support and the years to come of partnership with the city. So thank you very much.
Hoorah.
Miramar being our neighbor to the west, we have a fond appreciation for you guys, so thank you.
Are you going to make that next presentation from up here? Okay.
Lieutenant
Don't leave,
Colonel,
you might want to hear this.
Lieutenant Colonel, can you
you
hang
might.
out for another 2 minutes?
We'll make that an order. It'll be the first time I ever gave a lieutenant colonel an order. Probably the last time.
Ready? All right, guys, so I'm very honored here. Remember, about 30 days ago, I promised you that we... It is on.
Now it is.
Oh, gotcha. I thought it was on. I apologize. So I promised you 30 days ago, Vice Mayor McNellis kind of let the cat out the bag that we're going to have a very special project here in the city of Santee. We are going to be building a Veterans Memorial and dedicating our bridge that goes over Mass Boulevard as our memorial bridge to our veterans here. And so tonight I get to share with you a couple of cool things that we are working on and working through the project. So very first thing I have here is an actual scale model of the monument. Obviously, I know it's very small to a quarter scale, so you won't be able to see that, but you'll see some pretty pictures on the screen up here. And my friend, Mr. Michael Ranson's in the audience. He actually made this model for us here, you guys. One of our local residents here in Santee. So very privileged to have him work on this with us and use his talents to bring out the diverse talents we have here in Santee. So as you can see, honoring our heroes, Santee's Veterans Memorial Bridge and Monument, representing all 6 branches of the military. Next slide, please. The first slide you see is a hand-drawn picture of the bridge that goes over Santee Lakes on Mass Boulevard that has a gateway sign, and as you can see, the Santee Veterans Memorial Bridge. Right there in the median, and this is going from the eastbound direction down Mass Boulevard. And all the flags you'll see will be changed out on the light poles and some other significant things. Nice. Next slide, please. So that is a picture of the monument you see right there. And as you see on the 2 sides, land of the free because of the brave. That monument there is 11 feet tall. So that person next to it is Councilwoman Koval, standing at 6 feet.
The shorter version of her, exactly. Yeah.
Don't shortchange.
Right in the ballpark, sorry.
No pun
So you guys see a couple of pictures we'll represent. We keep some of the architecture within Santee here and make it very fitting into our community. This is a view from the intersection of Finito Parkway and Mast, right on that corner. This is a view from Mass Boulevard. You'll see from the side, and you can see obviously the memorial right there in the center, and it'll have all 6 branches of the military with a bronze reef on top of the memorial itself. Next slide. So it's kind of just a site plan. You kind of see that intersection or that corner of Finito Parkway and Mass Boulevard, representing some of the attributes that we'll be adding to that corner and enhancing that the beauty there. Next slide. And it's just a couple of the architectural elements that we'll be using in concept. Go back? Okay. Can we go back 1 slide? Mr. Vice Mayor has a question, I believe.
I think you should just point out the sunset.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So you guys can see one of the arrows in the center there, it reads, "Sunset shines on," quote, "because of the brave," on each November 11th. So Mr. Ranson had looked up when the solstice, when the sun sets on November 11th, at what position that sun comes down. That particular day, it's going to set at 16:49, the sunset will be, and the sun will hit that side of the building, and because of the brave will be lit up by the actual sun itself annually every year on November 11th. So there's a lot of thought and positioning of how this is put together. The 11 by 11, Councilman McNellis is asking about the dimensions of the memorial has to do with the Veterans Day date, obviously November 11th. So the size, 11 foot by 11 foot by 11 foot, is put together to make the significance of the Veterans Day holiday. And then the last slide, it just shows some of the architectural elements. These are showing concept, but some of the natural stones and elements and stucco finishes and the bronze reef element down there that we're going to be putting into it. So we do expect that it's going to blend really well with our natural motif here in Santee, and we're really, really proud and honored to share with you guys tonight as we go forward on this project. And we will be unveiling this and having a celebration on November 11th of this year in 2021.
How are we funding?
The funding is privately funded. We already talked about that a month ago.
So if anybody wanted to make a contribution here, just saying.
On June 1st, we're actually going to be putting out to the public how all that's coming together, but we are partnering with the Santee Chamber of Commerce for a fundraising mechanism on this one, and so all the donations will go through the chamber, and the whole entire project is privately funded and going to be given to the city of Santee in dedication, like I said, on November 11th.
Good job.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Can't help but to be proud of that. So, all right, that takes us to our next item, which is a presentation about the San Diego County Fair 2021. I think, Marlene, are you doing that, or?
I'm doing that. This is Katie Mueller at the Del Mar Fairgrounds.
Oh,
I'm doing it remote.
okay. I'm sorry, I'm just not used to looking down at the monitor.
Oh, no problem. Good evening. Like I mentioned, my name is Katie Mueller, and I'm the Chief Business Services Officer for the Del Mar Fairgrounds. What a year it's been. Last year, unfortunately, in 2020, the San Diego County Fair had to be canceled due to the pandemic, and this year is no different. Planning for the fair usually takes us about a year to plan all the details of it. So with all of the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, we didn't have a good enough lead time to be able to plan the full-blown fair, but what we're replacing it with is a new event that we're calling Homegrown Fun, which will occur during the dates of the traditional fair, June 11th through July 4th. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. So the goal of this event is to just give the county, everyone in San Diego County, a taste of the fair that we've all missed. Currently, the fairgrounds, if you're not aware, is serving as a vaccination station in partnership with Scripps Hospital. And we are one of the largest vaccination sites in San Diego County currently. We've been vaccinating up to and even over 5,000 people per day, providing a great service for the community. We're really honored to be able to be helping the community get back on its feet. But of course, an operation this size takes up quite a sizable footprint of the fairgrounds, and we're committed to continuing that process at least through June as we foresee. Next slide. So some of the things that you're going to find, traditional fair favorites include over 40 food stands of all different things, from cinnamon rolls to all of your deep fried favorites, tasty chips, which I'm really looking forward to, and everything in between. Next slide. We'll have daily entertainment. This event is really focused on agriculture and agriculture education. Our entertainment's going to include some of our fair favorites of the past, like Swifty Swine Pig Races, an extreme dog show, which will include dock dogs and agility dogs, an Agriland where kids can ride pedal tractors, be a farmer for the day, watch a real cow getting milked, brought to you by Hollandia Dairy, participate in Plant Grow Eat, a program where they can actually plant radish seeds to take them home with them. We'll have make and takes where you can make a craft here at the event and take that home with you as well. We will have a very, very small, we won't have our full-blown carnival with over 80 rides, but we will have a Ferris wheel and a carousel. Happy Day pony rides will be back for all the parents who missed out on getting pictures of their kids riding the pony ride. That's available this year. We'll have a number of contests fun on-the-spot contests and demonstrations inspired by our competitive exhibits program, which we also have been unable to gather to hold our traditional exhibits program, but we'll have demonstrations inspired by that. And then we'll have a number of different strolling entertainment, from musicians to jugglers to magicians and everything in between. Next slide. So some pictures. Next slide. We'll also have a retail shopping experience, which we haven't had, we weren't obviously able to have previously. So we'll have a gift shop that will have all kinds of fair merchandise in it, but also showcase shopping experiences in the exhibit hall, Seaside Pavilion, and Bing Crosby Hall. We'll have a model railroad train display. We'll have a garden show, a themed garden also inside the Seaside Pavilion. Lots to see and do. Next. Like I mentioned before, we'll be celebrating agriculture in a big way. Sudsy's Barn, which you can see there on the left, we've had that at fairs of the past, but that's a really fun way to encourage parents and kids and even grandparents to wash their hands and practice good hygiene. There'll be all kinds of animal demonstrations. We'll have Plant Grow Eat, as well as a number of different agricultural displays celebrating this county's top commodities. So displays about flowers, avocados, coffee, you name it. Next slide. Finally, we'll be celebrating our community. In addition, we will be hosting the Junior Livestock Show and Auction in person. It will not be open to the public because of the way the vaccination center is situated. It sort of cuts the event off from the barns, but we will be having those kids and their families here showing off their livestock projects, having them judged, and then we'll be having the auction virtually on Saturday, June 26th. There'll be more information on our website, sdfair.com, about how to register to become a buyer and support the kids with their youth livestock projects. Next slide. Finally, on 4th of July, we are having the fireworks celebration back this year. We're so excited to be able to offer that this year after a year of having gone without any fireworks. This program is really meant for people to view on site here at the fairgrounds. There won't be any kind of community gatherings in the neighboring cities and communities, but we're excited to present this show. We anticipate that tickets for this event will sell out, so we encourage everybody to buy your tickets well in advance. Next slide. And tickets are available at sdfair.com, as is parking passes. Tickets this year are only $10. That's about 50% of the price of the regular fare. And parking is only $12. When you buy your ticket online, you'll tell us what time you're going to arrive. And that way we can spread the attendance out so that we ease up the traffic and congestion on city streets and make sure everyone's having a pleasant experience. We also encourage rideshare and using our NCTD Fun Tripper. Next slide. And finally, of course, we will be following all guidelines and restrictions set forth by the County of San Diego Department of Health and the State of California Department of Health. We have a COVID plan in place that's been approved by the county, and we're working very closely with them to adjust. As has been the theme for this entire year, is pivot, pivot, pivot. So we will be adjusting as guidelines change. So I want to thank all of you. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening and allowing me to share our plans for this year.
Thanks, Katie. You don't have anything there for fishing, though, huh?
Nothing here for fishing this year, but I bet you're used to coming to the Fred Hall Fish and Tackle Show, and that will be returning as soon as guidelines, maybe after June 15th. We keep hearing that guidelines are going to ease up.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Any questions, comments, council? All right, Katie, thank you very much. Looking forward to getting out to the fair.
Thank you. Hope to see you all there.
Great. Well, that takes us to our consent calendar. Are there any items to be added, deleted, or reordered on the agenda? Ron, Laura, Justin?
No, sir.
Rob?
None for me, sir.
City manager? City attorney?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing,
Are there
sir.
any speaker slips?
No, sir, not for consent.
All right, then, I'll have do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor McNels and a second by Councilmember Hall. Please prepare to vote. Please vote. Did you want to speak, or would you push the wrong button?
Mayor Minto, you need to lock the vote and
I'm sorry?
need to lock the vote.
Okay, my screen shows the speakers.
All right, James. Like, I don't see anything that says speakers. His does? Oh.
Yeah, just so you know, we have a new system here, so there might be a couple of bugs that we're still working out as we go along, so we ask your patience. Okay, there we go. Great. Did that work then?
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. Whew, I'm glad we got through that one. All right, that takes us to non-agenda public comment for the first session. Speaker slips?
So we have 4 virtual speakers and 1 in person.
Okay, thank you.
The first speaker I have is Mary Hyder. You have 3 minutes, Mary.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. I have not attended a city council meeting for the last few sessions. Just had a couple of comments. The first is traffic is increasing again on 52. That's a positive, means folks are getting back to work. I'm grateful that vaccinations have gone as well as they have and that things are getting back to normal. My second comment has to do with, in January, there had been a resolution in regards to Bonita Ranch, and there had been there was a comment that there were some allegations and questions as to the signature gathering process. And I don't know if this has been addressed in recent months that I've missed it, or if there are plans for a future council meeting to let us know what happened in that regard and what's going on, if we should just plan on having the referendum in November of 2022. So happy to see the new setup there, and hopefully I can attend in person next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Becky Rapp. You just need to unmute yourself.
Good evening.
You have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a mother and a youth group mentor. Here tonight to voice my concern regarding the decision City Council made at the last meeting regarding marijuana businesses locating in Santee. In no way is this a good idea to expand marijuana into the city. The marijuana industry is good at making you think that the entire state and county are on board with locating marijuana businesses in their cities, but this is not the case at all. Almost 80% of California cities still uphold ordinances banning all marijuana businesses. I am proud that City Council member Rob Hall is fully against exploring any options city staff brings forward, as he knows how detrimental it will be on the public's health and safety. It's obvious cities who have allowed marijuana businesses did it for one main reason: to collect tax revenue. This is a fallacy the industry would like you to believe. Although there is tax money to collect, it will never amount to enough money needed to compensate for the negative outcomes. Cities that have gone down this road are now facing challenges they never anticipated prior to permitting marijuana businesses. higher crime rates, increased drug driving, and still they are combating the illegal market as it has only grown a greater presence in their cities. In fact, the direct harms of the legal market are 4.5 times the revenue, directly impacting staff's time and the city's financial budget. Recently, medical societies joined together, sharing concerns with government's efforts to legalize marijuana. These doctors state, "We are very concerned that the long-term public health costs associated with hospitalizations and treatment for psychiatric addictive disorders could significantly outweigh any revenue the states anticipate would be received from the legalization of marijuana." I ask you to please uphold the current ban on all marijuana businesses in the city of Santee. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker I have is Kelly McCormick. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a parent and a public health educator. I would like to share a valuable new resource for science-based, peer-reviewed information about the health effects of marijuana use. It's an online library provided by a group of doctors who have founded the International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis, referred to as ISAC. One of the founding members is San Diego's own Dr. Ramit Lev, Director of Emergency Medicine at Scripps Mercy Hospital. Dr. Lev also has served in the Office of National Drug Policy in Washington, D.C. The ISAC Library provides an extensive scientific and medical information resource. ISAC is nonpartisan and non-political, created to help facilitate informed decision-making regarding marijuana policy and law. At a news conference last week, ISAC board members said thousands of peer-reviewed medical articles have been published on the harms of cannabis, informing their conclusion that the public health effects of high-potency cannabis are harmful. They said the negative impacts further strain healthcare and addiction treatment resources to the extent that far surpasses taxation revenues. These costs are rarely included in the discussion. Take, for example, the significant increase in marijuana-related emergency department visits in San Diego County, which now average about 29 a day. The ISAC website provides data on the links between suicides and marijuana use, the effect on brain development, neonatal exposure, traffic fatalities, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, also known as scromiting, the relationship between marijuana use and the opioid crisis, and much more. I urge you to visit the website at www.iasic1.org. I will follow this comment up with an email. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The last speaker I have for virtual is Carol Green. You just need to unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes. Okay, let's go to we'll come back to Carol Green. Let's try John Dadian.
Welcome.
Good evening, members of the council. I did not come here to speak on the Veterans Memorial, but I do want to thank Councilmember Trotter for taking the leadership on this. It's great for this city. I just love this city. You mentioned November 11th as far as that celebration. Well, some of us will start celebrating on November 10th, which is the Marine Corps birthday, and I'll probably be joined by Councilmember Koval, who's an honorary Marine because of her father's service. So thank you all for that. I am here today because at public comment, you often get people who have complained about the city, not happy about something. That's not the case why I'm here today. I want to thank the city for the great job they always do, but especially for the past year under COVID. You literally have made lemonades out of lemon. You persevered. You've done some events that you said, let's go forward, and you had to modify them, and you changed them. One that happened last weekend was you changed the name even from Fido Fest to Fido Days. And I wonder why you changed it. Well, you changed it because it wasn't a fest in the park like we normally have. It was a day. You spread it out over 2 parts. You spread it out at certain times. You had to adapt. The Marine Corps colonel who was here, he would know what adapt means. That's the core mission of the Marine Corps, and that's what this city does. So I can't thank you enough. The reason I'm here is I'm from the old school. I literally believe that you cannot say thank you enough, and your staff, which we all know do not get enough recognition, just did a phenomenal job. They were there in the parks, they were helping everybody. I talked to so many people in the park that didn't know this was going on and just thought it was phenomenal. Now, finally, I would like to thank you on behalf of the 2021 Santee Spirit Award, who could not be here today, but he was awarded it in 2021 on Fido Day, and I would like to thank you on behalf of Brutus, who could not be here today, but he was your awardee, and he thinks, just like me, this is a great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dadian.
Let's try Carol Green again. You just need to unmute yourself.
Great, I figured it out. I'm sorry about that.
Perfect. You have 3
everyone.
minutes.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your patience with my technology. I attended the city council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I listened to the presentation about the possibility that Santee will be offering permits for marijuana businesses. I shared with you 2 weeks ago the painful story of me losing my son after he had a mental health crisis that was brought on by and triggered by marijuana. He had a psychotic break, and psychosis that lasted long after the THC was out of his system. I'm not going to go into that again. In the presentation, there were some assurances that permitting mitigated this and made things safer. Unfortunately, the information is not exactly correct. And I even attended the BCC meeting, the Bureau of Cannabis Control meeting, earlier this week to ask them specifically if these things were true. I attended the meeting and asked them to confirm that there are no compliance checks. They said the BCC has not done any compliance checks. Nobody is checking delivery systems. Nobody is starting minor decoy operations, and there are no immediate plans to do so. They're in the very early stages. And one of the commissioners on the BCC even said, we only have a few officers for the whole state of California. So anyone who thinks that the BCC is going to miraculously make sure that these businesses are operating by the book, let alone safely, is just not informed. And I would encourage all of you to find out more information before you move forward with any plans. We have delivery vehicles throughout the neighborhoods already, and the public needs to realize the risk factor to our community. I want to thank you for what you've done in the past on public health, and appreciate that you all know that your mission is to protect the health and safety of the citizens and visitors in Santee, and not to be a pawn in a huge business that stands to make a lot of money. Nothing I do will ever bring back my son, but I hope other kids are not fooled by the lies that big marijuana tells. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
No further speakers.
Great, thank you very much. That takes us to new business, which is item number 6, which is a resolution awarding the construction contract for the citywide pavement repair and rehabilitation program 2021, project CIP 2021. I'll go ahead and have, well, it's not Melanie.
Well,
You can introduce it, or?
Mayor, all I will do is introduce Carl Smith, our principal civil engineer in charge of the capital improvement program, give this report on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. As the title says, staff is here requesting City Council award the construction contract for the citywide pavement repair and rehabilitation program for 2021, and we're also going to provide a little background information on the pavement management program. Next slide, please. First, the award of the construction contract Staff is requesting award of the construction contract for the program to SRM Contracting and Paving. Staff received 10 bids with the low submitted by SRM Contracting and Paving in the amount of $1,054,423.60. After review, this bid has been deemed the lowest and responsive and responsible bid. Staff is also requesting authorization for the Director of Development Services to approve change orders not to exceed $263,605.90, or 25% for unseen items and additional work. This is a little bit larger than we normally ask for, but that's substantially due to the very low bid prices that were a little over 30% lower than the engineer's estimate, and those are budgeted funds. We'll be using those on some of the already pre-planned paving programs that we already did some crack filling for and we were planning to do next year. So we're going to advance it as much as we can with your authorization. Funding for the project is included in the adopted and proposed improvement program budget and is consistent with all the funding reporting requirements. Funding for this project is provided by Transnet Local Street Improvements and Gas Tax RMRA or SB1 funds. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to give you a little background on the pavement management program. Pavement management is pretty much the process of designing, planning, budgeting, funding, and building and bidding pavement. And this is done in an effort to provide maximum benefit with the available funds we do have. It's also used we use the pavement management report to determine future infrastructure needs in an effort to lobby for dedicated funding in the future. This has been successful with Transnet Local Streets and Roads sales tax and gas tax RMRA that were recently expanded. Santee's first pavement management report was completed in 1993, some time ago. That was just a pavement condition index that was accumulated at that time as a requirement of the Federal Highway Administration. The first major report that actually created budgets and work plans was in 1998, and staff here have been using this program ever since. The PCI is one of the indexes that we use to measure the condition of a pavement. That's the indicator we use to establish our goals and our processes and procedures. The PCI is a measure that goes from 0 to 100, 0 being very poor and 100 being a completely new street. In 2017, at the time of Santee's last report, the city's overall network, which is every street in the city of Santee, had a network PCI of 62. At that time, the county average was 72, so we're a little bit below the county average. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of City of Santee's network, we have 121.5 lane miles. That equates to 27.9 million square feet of infrastructure with an investment of $132.4 million. That's the value of it. Pavement is maintained almost entirely with construction contracts. The PSD staff do provide emergency repairs and pothole patching as needed. Funding is primarily provided by the two funding sources I've already listed, Transnet and gas tax revenue. But council, being generous, the last 2 fiscal years allocated some reserves to help enhance the program. And I'd also like to point out with the last bullet, in 2010 and 2014, the city of Santee participated in future year Transnet bonds. And the result of that is a debt service of approximately $880,000 per year. This will be grandfathering out in the years 2030 and 2034. What this allowed us to do is leverage funding early on to get more paving done at an earlier year. But what that does is it kind of delays funding until those outer years. Next slide. Talk a little bit about the results of the last report. At the time of the 2017 report, it was estimated that Santee needed $2.28 million per year just to maintain the PCI of 62 that we had. A budget of $4.75 million per year was estimated to bring the network to a PCI of 70 over a period of 5 years, 70 being the most desirable PCI for maintenance efforts. Based on prior funding and cost, moving forward, Santee would need to increase funding by 166% just to keep the current condition and or an increase of 347% over the next 5 years to get it to the desirable level of 70. Next slide, please. Talking a little bit about the report itself and the process. The main purpose, again, as I mentioned, is to utilize the funding the best way we can over a period of time. Prior to the first report, and historically, pavement was always maintained based on the collective knowledge and through ad hoc committees, and it was kind of a worse first kind of scenario, but it took zero to no consideration to long-term management and budgeting. Santee updates this report about every 5 years to reevaluate the current conditions and update requiring information that we are required to report to the state, SANDAG, and we also report to the League of California Cities, and that's one of the things they use to lobby for additional funds. The results of the reporting are used to identify infrastructure needs and lobby the funds, and that's, like I mentioned before, is what helped increase the extension of Transnet and the gas tax. The report allows for these long-term coordinations also with utilities and development projects in order to plan and coordinate all that work so we can prevent cutting into brand new streets. That's something we're always striving to do. Next slide, please. This graph is kind of important to demonstrate the cost effect of delaying maintenance and spending money up front. On the left side of the red curve, which represents the depreciation or the condition of paving, excellent being the top, and then over time on the bottom. What's important to know is there's a little arrow indicating $1 spent now. That's a PCI of about 70. What we do then is, if we can spend $1 now, you look at the next part of it in the light blue, what's been determined over time is that you get a 40% drop of quality in 15% of the time. And delaying it by that piece is what causes the cost to go as high as $8 per square foot. So what that means is a lot of times what staff is trying to do is balance maintaining the $1 and the $8 scenario to try and do a combination of both. Next slide, please. Within the payment management report, this is actually a result of what we actually find. I think Dustin shared a little bit of about this a few meetings back. But this is actually the payment condition map. And what it shows are all the zones in Santee. I think we have 43 zones. These zones were established based on the time the construction happened, whether it was a development, and the time recent repairs were done. What that allows us to do is strategically, based on funding, look at these zones and do similar repairs in similar areas to get economy of scale. And what we try and do is balance those over time. The legend over to the right, it's hard to see, but the goal is to get everything to green or blue. We still have some at the time of this last report in the orange and yellow and tan. So the goal with this is to give us a tool to analyze the entire network and use these zones to get the best bang for the buck with the paving money we do have. Next slide, please. The payment management report's development is very specific. The picture on the right is a van. That's actually specialized equipment that is mounted on that van that picks up road distresses and cracks and ride quality. Those are plugged into formulas to establish and develop the PCI index that we use for budgeting and payment processes and development of the programs that we implement. These strategies and assessments are integral to us, allowing us to get our staff, as you can see in the picture below, out there and actually taking it a step further, measuring detailed quantities and putting a payment program together for bidding. Next slide, please. Just a quick city comparison of neighboring cities you're all familiar with that are similar in size and nature to Santee. What's important to note is the average PCI of these neighboring cities is about a 71.5. And again, this was at the time of the 2017 report. Looking at funding for 2021, the average amount of money those cities were spending was $3 million to get those PCIs to that level. Santee is planning to spend 1.88 this year. Next slide, please. So a little bit about future steps. Staff is planning to return to City Council later this year with recommendations to award a consultant contract to update the payment management report. Doing so and updating this report will, again, aid staff in development future plans, projects, and continue to provide long-range planning and reporting based on available funding. Next slide. That brings us to the recommendation. Staff is recommending that City Council adopt the resolution and receive staff presentation, awarding the construction contract for the citywide pavement repair and rehabilitation program 2021, CIP 2021-02 to SRM Contracting and Paving for a total amount of $1,054,423.60, and authorizing the Director of Development Services to approve change orders in a total amount not to exceed $263,000 or $263,605.90, and approving a category exemption pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. Next slide. Here's just some slides of last year's paving program demonstrating, the kind of work that's actually happening that people see out there in the field. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Do we have any speaker slips?
No speakers.
Okay, council members? No, got to get used to this. Okay, Laura?
All right, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you probably didn't have enough time to get this information, but it's a question I asked Marlene yesterday when I was reviewing the report. And my question was, like, for instance, the city of El Cajon, which has a average PCI of 79, and they spend $4 million annually compared to our $1.88 million annually. Are we comparing apples to apples in the number of roads they have to manage, or do they have significantly more roads, or?
They have more roads. It's hard to make an apples to apples comparison. I'm just trying to compare global what neighboring cities do, because it's never an apples and apples comparison. Because, for example, if you look at Poway has had a lot of money out of their general fund dedicated, and from our understanding is it's been over $2 million every year for over a decade. Allowing that to happen has brought up those PCIs much higher. We've been having a fighting battle trying to bring them up. And it's just, we're always playing catch up at this point. And, it really comes down to funding, but it's hard to compare apples to apples with an exact same city because the techniques we're using might vary because our distresses might be different. They were done at a different time. So each year it's going to be dependent on the strategies used for the locations that they're doing the work.
And then my other question is, we contribute $1.88 million, but how about developer funds? Is that included in this? When a developer does a project?
I think only in one instance that I did not mention, we used some traffic impact fees for a one-time benefit several years ago. But for the majority of it, no, we're not using developer funds, and general funds have only been recently been used. To my knowledge, since I've been here over 20 years, we've only done it twice using general funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one of the comments I want to make is that tonight we're going to be looking at the capital improvements program. And we might find out, you're going to hate me for this, Tim, but we might find out that we have streets that are in worse condition now than some of those streets that are in our proposed capital improvements program. Is there the opportunity, if necessary, to swap out some of those that would be maybe put into that plan tonight? Pardon the pun, but how much are they embedded in concrete that we can't change them? And the reason why I ask that question is because Dustin and I have been talking, and he's pointed out to me Pebble Beach, and between Mass Boulevard and, let's say, Grass Valley has become very, well, it's like going down a cobblestone street almost at times in some of those areas. And that might be something that gets identified as something that is a higher priority. Hope I don't steal your thunder on this one.
No, not at all. I got plenty of questions for Carl too.
Okay, gotcha. So just I'm gonna let Dustin go ahead and probably ask some of his questions because it might be similar, and then we can get the answer on that. How's that sound?
Sure.
Dustin?
So actually, let's just start with the budget. So what is the 2021 budget for for the
Right
maintenance,
now,
the paving?
it's 1.88 million. I think that's what we currently have programmed.
But we're only spending 1 million, a little over 1 million.
We are going to be coming back to you in about 3 to 4 weeks with a slurry seal contract.
Okay.
That's going to be budgeting the rest of that money.
Okay, that's a start. I want to make sure, obviously, this money was allocated. I want to make sure we're actually using it and find more streets if it comes down to it and make more contracts. I mean, whatever it takes to use the money that was allocated, right?
Yeah, what we found is when we have larger dollar amounts, it's easier and we get more bang for the buck if we break the contracts out so we don't get markup from contractors, from
Yeah, I
generals.
understand. You answered the question about the 10%, because, I mean, the 25% is normally 10%, you're asking, but you answered that question. So kind of that question is, if you have more money today, could you do more? So what I mean is that you have to contract out right now for the summer. That's what you're really ultimately asking for the funds for. So if you have more money today, could you get more done this summer?
Timing is a little tricky because it takes, we put it out to bid for 4 weeks, a couple of weeks to open bids, come back to you, and then get bonds, insurance. The likelihood of us getting it in the summer before the rainy season is pretty small. Not to say it can't be done, but we're likely to be in the rainy season, which is not ideal, just because we're dealing with weather and temperatures, especially with slurry seals and some of the pavings. We just prefer not to do it, and there's criteria we need to meet for some of those, for temperature, and then moisture is always a problem. So that's why we always prefer to do it in the summer. We get a better product when we do it in the summer.
Carl, can I just jump in? I think part of the question was, and that's why the 25%, that's the max that we can do for a change order. So that, if that was the question, that's the answer, is that with this contract, the goal is to max it out so that if, they could use all the extra money possible.
Yeah, part of the question was the budget. Are we using the whole entire budget? I understand we have to take the lowest responsible bidder, obviously, but we want to make sure we're using every dollar that we have allocated to it. And two, if Carl had more money today, could he get another contract in place? That's
Yeah, and that's what I was explaining.
But yeah, I got it.
Sean had mentioned, under public contract code, the maximum we can do without renegotiating prices is 25%. That's why we're asking for the maximum.
Going to be another bid, another contractor, another bid process?
We could, if money is available, we would go through another bid process.
Right.
That would be the appropriate way to do it.
That wouldn't apply then the 25% at that point.
Correct. With Carl's caveats on time, if there were more money, then I think staff would do everything they could to get another contract.
Again, don't want to put bad, don't want to go do stuff and obviously have bad just asking more.
The other caveat, it depends on the funding type. The mayor was mentioning that a little bit. We have to program this funding a year in advance if it's Transnet or SB1. In fact, I will be coming back to City Council programming that at one of the next meetings, SB1 and Transnet. General fund money or one-time money, those are easy to deal because they do not require long-term reporting.
Right.
Sandag, however, and the state do like us to report local funds when we're using them because they also use that for transparency and for lobbying and budget purposes. So they would subsequently like me to report those in the future when we're done. So that's why it takes us so long and we have to plan these so far in advance. And that's why the payment management report is so helpful for that purpose.
So Tim, Carl had mentioned obviously primarily our funding, or in this particular case, Transnet and Gas Tech revenue. Are we expecting those revenues to go down next year?
We're actually expecting them to go a little bit up. They were down in 2021. They're expected to tick up a little bit in 21, 22. Okay. People driving more, stronger gas tax revenues. So post-COVID, we're expecting a little bit of an uptick there. Let me just go on the record, though, with kind of a preview of the proposed CIP. In the proposed CIP for both the rehab, which is similar to the contract you awarded earlier this evening, and more of the slurry seal maintenance type of work, combined for the first 2 years of the CIP, including the contract that you awarded this evening, we have a total of $6 million budgeted in the first 2 years. That includes maxing out our Transnet, maxing out our gas tax revenues, and the general fund throwing in another $1 million to push the pedal to the metal just a little bit further.
So what PCI is that going to get you to in 2 years?
Well, it would be better for me to wait until we do update the report, and that's what we would like to do because that'll help give us a better gauge. So when we come back to you to give you recommendations for the locations. However, that doesn't preclude you guys, like we've done it with MAST, on giving us direction to go to certain areas.
I'm just using simple math here. If this was done in 2017, that was 5 years ago, and if you're saying that we need 166% of the dollars to be able to maintain the same, that means you're running at a deficit every year to hit the PCI. So I mean, and I understand it's an average of the whole entire city, because there's a lot of streets that are less than 60, you know, quite, and there's maybe some that's more, but it tells me that, you know, if I do simple math, we're running under a 60 right now, which you showed the graph of the other cities, and we're in the bottom, you know, quite frankly.
No way around it.
Hmm?
No way around it.
Yeah, we're in the bottom on our PCI index, which is obviously what the measure of it is, and we're in the funding that's obviously, you know, allocated to it. You said it was going to take $2.28 million just to maintain the current.
That was at the time of the 2017 report.
Right.
That's what it projected we needed over those 5 years.
Right.
So as we go forward, we'll get a much better picture come the first of the year, next year, when we do a management report, to give you a report on where we are at that time. You know, I can't say it's going to be lower or higher, because we're going to reevaluate the whole network again. We've added new streets. That sometimes raises the PCI.
True.
We may add, you know, if we add Sky Ranch and accept those streets, those kinds of things bring it up. If we add Weston, every time you add new streets at 100, those things change. So it's not a direct correlation, and that's why we often recommend updating these payment manager reports to keep us on par so we can replan the next 5 years, and that's where we're at.
So, I mean, this was a priority made by the council back in February, obviously, our road paving, you know, program, and I appreciate, obviously, you bringing this forward to, you know, not for our benefit, but for the public to understand how it is that you analyze, how you go through it. There's a lot, obviously, for our conversations, you really go through and do a lot of work to you work with what you have to work with, you know, lack of a better. So I do truly appreciate it, Carl, and as much as you've educated me in the last 4 months and helped me to understand what we do. But ultimately, you guys, we have to put more money into these streets, period. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, you know, one of the things that I identified, or I thought was the appropriate, you know, use, hopefully, was the one-time money from Waste Management. We got $1.75 million hit our general fund, and those trash trucks are on our streets every single day, not just on the major arterials, but in our residential roads. And that's an impact that they make, and they hit our streets every day. So, you know. Correct, yeah, that's kind of my point, but obviously that was a one-time, you know, funding, and I'd like to see, obviously, that. But, I mean, I'll make the motion, obviously, to staff recommendation, you know, for this fiscal year, but, you know, I really think we need to look at finding some more, get Carl some more money to make more happen, lack of a better.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it, but I still have a comment to make.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
And that is, well, just to slightly echo Councilman Member Trotter's last comment, just like we've brought up a couple of times now, I think at the retreat and at a subsequent meeting to that, I think we need to look at how we are assessing this again, because some of the worst streets just aren't getting done, and it's not fair to, you know, those community members, just so we can bring up an average and keep other things, make it look a little bit better for a number on a piece of paper. But the reality is that if you live anywhere, like if you got to drive down Woodside, or you got to drive on, as mentioned, Pebble Beach, or a number of streets in the city, it's a beating. It's a beating on your vehicle. It's a beating, and it's just the pride of ownership diminishes on those streets as well. If you'll notice, we're not taking care of our streets. The citizens aren't taking care of their yards anymore, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's face it, our job, number 1 and 2 jobs, making sure the streets are safe, street lights are on, and that somebody answers the call when you call for help. That's 1, 2, and 3 there. You could decide which order that's in, but those are the top 3 priorities. Everything else is gravy after that. So I think we really need to, once again, just reiterate that we need to look at how we determine what street gets done. I know it's difficult to do willy-nilly, but it's not necessarily cost effective, but some of these streets it's just been too long. We got to figure it out. And if we need to have a discussion about some general funds, some one-time money, and go into the piggy bank and get some stuff done just to bring us up to par, because we should have been allocating CIP funds for the last 10 years that I was here. It didn't happen right away. I had to fight fight very hard to bring a CIP back. So I'm glad that we do have it now, but the reality is that we're way behind the 8 ball on that, and we need to probably make some stuff get even in order to give you the ability to keep it at par. It's not reasonable to give them a deficit budget each year in that allocation, and then ask them to make the streets better for us. So it's just that's maybe more to my colleagues than it is to you, but that's where I am on this. Thanks.
Carl, you don't have a magic wand, huh?
No, but I can certainly tell you more money it's not the ultimate fix. It's long-term programming, continued long-term programming. One-time money certainly will help bring some of those streets that are very distressed and we get a lot of concerns with. But it's going to take commitment like everything else that you guys have to make decisions on. It's long-term commitments that we need to make going forward. And again, we'll do our best with the money that's available and give you recommendations we think are appropriate based on our experience.
And Ron, you have a comment?
Well, it's going to kind of mirror Rob's comments, because I think we've both been back and forth on this for years. We got to, my whole point was take that SB1 money and just put it back into the big roads. I don't care where we put it, but we got to take it and use it on fixing these roads. If we have to go into the general fund, I'm all for it. The facts speak for themselves. We're not there. How did San Diego do theirs? I don't know if it was mirrors or whatever, but they went out, no, we're going to fix all these roads. Does anybody know how they did that?
Just give me
Or is it just
for a minute. We might have a statistic on that.
My guess is they robbed Peter to pay Paul.
I'm just figuring out, I'm looking for options on who to rob.
The county of San Diego was a 61. They were below us.
Right.
And did we have something for the city at that time?
Did they move to 70 or something?
I don't think we had it for the city because it's hard to get information from them sometimes.
Well, you had a 61 and we're like 62, so rah for us. But the reality is we don't need to be Poway, but we should be El Cajon, or at least beating La Mesa. So I don't understand how El Cajon's doing it. They're not exactly in the money either, unless they're getting grants from somebody. But
we all operate a little differently. El Cajon has some dedicated staff. We're pretty lean here, as council knows. El Cajon, Poway, some of the other cities have dedicated paving crews and crack fill crews that certainly help. Those are some of the things I didn't mention, but those kinds of things also add and benefit in addition to the money, because then it's material cost and then labor costs are already built in. But it gets very complex. It's not a simple discussion.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, we need to be, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, I think we need to double whatever we're doing now and figure out a way of doing it. Unfortunately, because Woodside is one, El Nepal's another, Pebble Beach, pick your road, basically, at this point, they're all bad. And, unless they got a developer refixing them up, this has nothing to do with you guys, but it has to do with just trying to put some money into the kitty and get it moving. So I'm for what Rob was saying.
Thank you. Marlene?
Council, please don't shoot the messenger, but many of the other cities that are listed also have other sorts of financial actions that they've taken, either sales tax measures, or they've gone out for a bond, or those types of things over the years that have helped. We appreciate council support, and we'll try to do whatever we can with the money that's allocated to us. But I think Tim has also highlighted, when we get into the CIP budget, we recognize this council's interest in wanting to move forward with roads rather than maybe some other priorities. So we've really tried to refocus on that, and we'll continue to do that as we go forward.
Great, thank you. All right, then, I have a motion by Councilman Trotter to accept the staff recommendation. And was there a second? Second by McNellis. Please prepare the vote.
Mayor Mento, can you lock the vote, please?
I don't have it up. Okay. Thank you. It is what it is.
Motion carries unanimously.
But you know, you guys got it easy. You got a little bit different kind of gadgets where you're at than what I'm at.
Well, maybe you need one of our gadgets.
Exactly. So, okay, that takes us to, thank you very much, Carl. Appreciate that. That takes us to item number 7, which is, you bring that up. Report on the delivery of building division services within the Department of Development Services and resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the professional service agreement with Eskil LLC, now Interwest Group, a Safe Built Company. Melanie.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. This one is all mine. Yeah, okay. Okay. This item requests adoption of a resolution that grants the city manager the authority to execute a First Amendment to an existing professional services agreement with Eskil for a 1-year term. But it also provides some information in the way in which building and permitting services are delivered in our city. Eskil is now Interwest Group and part of the Safe Built Company, but for presentation purposes, the name Eskil is used. And Eskil representatives are here with us tonight, should you have any questions directed to them. Next slide. So the city currently contracts with Eskil for building services and has done so for many years. At the March 9th, 2021 City Council workshop, the City Council asked that staff review the building and inspection services and to present service delivery options at a future meeting. Today is that meeting. The preliminary staff research shows a variety of ways in which cities in the San Diego region provide permit and inspection services. Next slide, please. For instance, some cities are 100% staffed with consultant staff, such as Eskil, and that includes the cities of Santee, Encinitas, Lemon Grove, and Poway as examples. Or we have found that some cities hybrid this. They provide a combination of both city employees and consultant staff, such as in the city of Coronado, El Cajon, and National City. And then the other option could be entirely staffed with city employees, as is done at the city of Del Mar, Escondido, La Mesa, and San Marcos. So there's a broad spectrum of alternatives. Next slide. So what do we do in the city of Santee? This goes into the staffing levels. Eskil has assigned to us 2 permit counter technicians, 1 building inspector, and 1 supervising building inspector. Plan checks, especially the more complicated ones, are performed at Eskil offices. And depending on the workload and the turnaround times, more than 1 plan checker may be assigned to turnaround projects back to us. We also utilize a permit management system known as Community Core to track permit applications through the system. Apart from the permit counter technicians, Eskil staff hold degrees in civil and structural engineering and International Code Council certifications to perform plan checks and inspections. Plan checks and the complexity of those plan checks ranges from a pre-approved solar drawing to multiple-story buildings like Sharp and Park One. So it's all over the place. Next slide, please. So the current agreement with Eskil expires at the end of June, and it already provides for 2 one-year extensions. The First Amendment to the agreement has been prepared and is being brought forward for your approval because not only are we extending the term of the agreement, but we are adding additional services to the scope of services. The agreement addresses increased insurance requirements and reflects the corporate name from Eskil to Interwest. More importantly, though, the execution of the First Amendment avoids interruption in essential services, which include not only building inspection and permitting, but Eskil also provides EOC coverage if we had an emergency and other jobs that require an inspector should there be a fire in a building or a flood, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. As it seems like this must be really important, but the First Amendment provides for the continued services. And it allows time for further study of options if requested by the City Council. If directed, staff would return with more in-depth analysis related to city staffing levels and the structure to perform the desired services. These positions would include a counter-permit technician or two, a building official, a building inspector or two, and plan examiners. The salary ranges and the personal costs for those positions would be part of a report, should you request it, and it would identify some of the inherent pros and cons of in-house staff versus consultant staff. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide. Look, I said it again. A one-year extension allows the time necessary to conduct the research per City Council direction without interruption in services. Therefore, we recommend adoption of the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the professional services agreement with Eskil LLC.
Thank you. We have one speaker slip.
The speaker I have is Bill, and I don't want to butcher the last name. It's really long. Okay.
Welcome. If you could just give us your last name for the record. Thanks.
Yeah, Bill Elizaroras. Good evening, honorable council members and staff. Thank you for this opportunity. Eskil has grown from a little mom and pop shop to now we are statewide and nationwide with Safe Built. We are backed up by Interwest, and now instead of 14 plan checkers here in our offices, we now have access to 67 more. So that helps out with our workloads. And, and our staff are very part of the city. I feel like part of the city. I've been a permit tech here, I've been a plans examiner, and I've been a building inspector and your building official for the last 20 plus years. So it's been an honor to be here with you, and I hope we can keep our relationship. We really value it. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
No further speakers.
Council members?
Bill, will you come back up here real quick, actually, please? So when you walked in, I said I recognize you. I remember. So you did work here as a building inspector. So in the past, I remember. Did you and Alette worked here at the same time? I believe
You did.
at that time. And I'm trying to get a little chronological history here for fun. But did you work here when Susan worked here at the counter?
I did.
Okay. So I remember Susan back in the 90s. She was here for a long time here in the city and working that counter. If you maybe Melanie knows this question or Bill, what was our staffing levels in the 90s and the 2000s?
I think we had, was it 2 permit techs and 2 building inspectors?
This would be testing my memory.
I know. I apologize. I'm just trying to.
Trotter, but Susan, what is hard to pin down is that as peak demand or the workload increases, depending on what's coming in, we would always have adequate staff to help Susan.
Mm-hmm.
So Susan had another technician in the office for some time. Her name was Stephanie. So
Okay.
to get if you're name calling, I mean,
Yeah,
I can do that.
I just remember Susan. That's why I was calling her out. But
And then we had 2 inspectors because one inspector, whenever it was very busy, they couldn't, one inspector couldn't be at all places at one time, and they need to inspect within 24 hours. So the staffing level would increase based on the need. But I can say 2 inspectors, 2 permit technicians, and we did have a building official who actually had an office in our department.
Okay, so we pretty much have the same staffing levels for the last 30 years.
I
More or less?
think on average, I think 5, maybe. The thing is, the plan examiners are off-site right
Yes,
now.
I understand
So
that.
I don't know.
Right.
If we were to be cautious, we would say 5 plus 1 for a total of 6.
Okay, and obviously being a contract city and services, and you guys obviously, building inspectors especially, have to service other areas, right? So they're not full-time here in the city of Santee, but the technicians are here daily. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Both technicians, Monday through Friday, I guess?
Monday
Yes.
through Friday, yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a little bit of history there, if you will, in there. So that's why I remember Bill said, dealing with you 10 years ago or more, I do know, so when we passed away, so I remember. So thank you. Go sit down. I'll finish. Thank you. Right there. All right, so this actually is another priority item that I brought forward when I got elected on the council, you guys. I wanted to look at this one, and this is one that I think we need to look in deeper. And not that Eskil's done a bad job or a good job, and that's not what this is really about. Is just that making sure that we are doing the best thing for the city of Santee, ultimately. So if that's a financial reason, if that's the services that we're providing, ultimately we're a customer service, oriented. We should be servicing our customers. So they're coming to the counter, we should be giving them the service that they deserve. And in every interaction we have with them, every resident, developer, contractor, doesn't matter who they are, they need to be treated in the same way. They need to be worked. Everything goes all the way through, not just with building services, but all of DDS. I only agree with not only, I guess, I'd say, but Melanie, the one thing you said, that service cannot stop.
Correct.
That is something that I absolutely agree with and adamant about, but I do not agree with the recommendation that is here tonight. 12-month extension, I don't think is appropriate, being that this was put as a priority one, a tier 1 item back in February. And to be honest with you guys, it's been 3 months, and it'd be 4 months by the time this contract expires come June. And we knew this contract was expiring. So this is not something that we didn't know, 30 days ago. So I know we have to extend this, and I'm going to actually make a motion right now and let the council go ahead and discuss the rest of it, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. I believe we need to have a 6-month extension to the end of this year, and that the staff brings back the research that you're referring to here, Melanie, within 4 months. That's my motion for this item tonight. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other council comments or questions on that? Ron?
I saw you did the general insurance, and it's just a quick question. Did you raise it? What did you do with it?
So we added sexual misconduct insurance.
That's what I was reading, so I just wanted, so what's the general liability? Is it 1.2 or 2.4?
2.4.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Can you please prepare to vote? Please vote. Did you get all the votes?
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Before we go on to item number 8, I want to take about a 10-minute break. That way we can stretch a little bit, because I know this is going to take a little while, and we're not all accountants, so it's not the most exciting thing. So let's go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. Sorry, Tim. All right, let the record reflect that we're back in general session. And that takes us to item number 8, which is a presentation of the proposed capital improvement program for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. And that'll be presented by the city manager and the finance manager. And I understand that will take about 2 hours tonight.
I'll try to cut it a little bit shorter than that. See what I can do for you.
Well, you should have seen the look on everybody's face, though.
All right, good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening I'll be presenting to you an overview of the proposed capital improvement program. That's a 5-year plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. And next slide, please. So while I'm going to be giving the presentation, keep in mind, obviously this was a team effort. All of your department heads, key staff throughout the organization all had a hand in developing this program. So we'll have questions and discussion on the back end or during the presentation. I'm happy to take questions. Some may be better directed to some of the other staff here this evening.
You know what, Tim, along with that, before you get started, I want to make it clear too. Some people think about that, we just say, okay, we're going to have this capital improvements budget or any budget, and they say, so the finance manager and team sit down a couple hours before and write this up and make a few slides. And I got to tell you, my understanding is that just doesn't happen. This is actually weeks of planning and studying, right?
Well, let's call it months. We've been working on this since early February.
I was giving you more credit than that.
Of course, work even starts even before that. But formally, we've been working on it as a team since early February.
That's the point I want to make, is this is just not something that's done half-heartedly. Thank you.
Definitely not. So just a few brief points. The purpose of the capital improvement program is that it serves as a multi-year planning tool for the infrastructure and other capital needs of the city. It assists the city council with setting priorities for the allocation of our limited resources. Next slide, please. It identifies unfunded needs, helps the staff manage our workloads and project schedules, and importantly, it establishes the appropriated CIP budget for the first 2 fiscal years. Next slide, please. So, over the next 5 years, the proposed CIP includes a total of 73 projects. We break them down into 5 categories. Total project costs identified in excess of $267,000. The 5 categories are circulation, drainage, facilities, parks, and a variety of other projects.
Was that 265,000?
Did I say 1,000?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm so sorry. 267 million.
Just a decimal pointer.
Pardon me.
So.
These are not my power hours of the day. Next slide, please. Hey, I brought that on myself. Okay, so of the total amount that we just talked about, 114 million of it is identified as funded over the next 5 years. That includes 43 separate, fully funded projects, with, unfortunately, the balance being reflected as unfunded. Point to be made, though, we are constantly seeking grant funds for a variety of projects and trying to chip away at that unfunded balance whenever possible. Next slide, please. So a reminder that the CIP is primarily funded with restricted funding sources. About 93% of the total CIP funding does come from sources that can only be used for very particular purposes. The primary funding source are our development impact fees, which are assessed on new development. $47.4 million expected over the next 5 years. Included in that amount is $18.1 million, which represents cash currently on hand. Developer contributions are projects that are typically constructed by developers and then given to the city typically. $23 million in developer funded projects are identified in the plan. Sandag, $16.5 million. That includes 2 key projects. They're the San Diego River improvements over in the Carlton Hills area, and $6 million towards Highway 52. And there's a variety of other funding sources there on the slide. The American Rescue Plan Act, I will talk about that in a little bit more detail here in a few minutes. Next slide.
Tim, before you leave that one,
Sure.
the developer contributions, is that development that's already underway completely, or is this stuff that
It's-
we're hoping maybe comes to fruition?
It's a combination of both. Projects that are already entitled. Much of it is planned projects. A lot of it is along the river. It's the San Diego River Trail. It's the segments that are, developers are required to install as a condition of development.
Okay, so, but once again, those are projects that have been entitled.
Not all, yeah, but not all. So the 23.6 does include other projects that are not yet entitled.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got to, but fit into the current general plan?
My understanding is they do. I mean,
You understand where I'm going with this is?
I do.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor McNellis, can you actually repeat that question?
I said, so are these unentitled projects, projects that actually already fit into the general plan, or are they going to be projects that will have to go to a ballot?
Oh, no, we're anticipating that these projects are consistent with the general plan. So for instance, Tim mentioned the river trail as one aspect of a contribution. So Carl Strauss, okay, fine, maybe that turns into something else, but all consistent with the general plan, entitled. We expect other projects to come forward, perhaps closer to Magnolia on Chubb Lane for the river component. So we've got a list of projects that may come forward that are just pre-applications, and we pull out our crystal ball and we start thinking about what those developments will contribute. So Tim is right, some are entitled and sleeping, and some are in the works.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Better to have a crystal ball than a lead balloon.
I agree.
Okay, so when we were talking about paving earlier this evening, we were talking about the general fund and its contribution to the paving program. So what you will see in this proposed capital improvement program is a much higher level of general fund contribution than we typically see. It includes $5.4 million in general fund infusion in the first 2 years. And on your slide are a handful of the projects. As I mentioned earlier, $1 million in additional money towards paving, $492,000 allocated to Highway 52. That was done at mid-year last year by the City Council. Just a reminder, we're still holding those funds for that purpose. Various stormwater projects, about $800,000. The permitting and land management system, this just represents the general fund portion of that project. Total project cost is closer to $600,000. Improvements to Town Center Community Park West ball fields, and a Vector truck dewatering decanting station. Those are some of the larger general fund proposed projects. Next slide. Okay, so going back to the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the next round of COVID relief money allocated to states and local governments. Santee's share is $7.3 million. We've actually received the first 50% payment of that, received late last week. Included in the eligible uses for this money is a very defined set of infrastructure projects, including stormwater, which also, clean water projects, which include stormwater, sewer, and broadband projects. So next on the slide is a listing of the projects that the proposed CIP is recommending that we utilize the ARPA funds. Again, it's a combination of broadband and storm drain projects for the most part. You will notice the Santee Aquatic Center upgrades is included on that list. And that is included under other provisions of the ARPA funding, which allows the city to pass through some of its funding to local nonprofits for them to mitigate their impacts from the COVID pandemic. The thought being that the YMCA had revenue losses during the pandemic period. There's some deferred maintenance that's needed out at the Aquatic Center. So we're proposing to use a portion of the ARPA funds to pass through to the YMCA to assist them with those improvements. So a key point to be made, this is the first time we've been talking with you about the ARPA monies. This is just an effort by staff to match some of the ARPA funding to where we can actually spend it on infrastructure. And the plan is clearly to bring a discussion item back to the city council here in the next month or two. Basically an expenditure plan, a proposed expenditure plan, get the council direction on where the council sees the $7.3 million to be fully allocated. These are just recommendations. They can be adjusted at any point in time. We're not going to move forward and actually spend any of these monies until we have an expenditure plan that the city council has bought into. And of course, no contracts would be awarded without city council approval as well. Next slide. All right, we're going to talk specifically on some of the projects. Circulation projects make up the bulk of the capital improvement program, $162 million. Next slide. And as we talked earlier this evening, pavement repair and rehabilitation and the pavement roadway maintenance projects. We separate them as two different projects. The first one is the major reconstruction and overlays. The second one is more your minor crack sealing and slurry seals. As I mentioned, we have identified $6 million total in funding for the first 2 years of the capital improvement program. That does include the contract that you awarded earlier this evening. It includes a $1 million infusion from the general fund. It also includes accelerating some of the reserves that we've traditionally held on to. We've left a little bit of a gap in Transnet monies every year just to make sure we didn't get overexpended. The state SB1 monies, the gas tax monies, there was a period of uncertainty subject to a California voter initiative. So we were cautious in over-allocating those monies. We're now comfortable. We know what our balances are. The revenue streams have settled in pretty well. So there's a bit of a reserve balance that, again, in an effort to get dollars into paving sooner rather than later, the proposed CIP will bring down those reserve balances essentially all the way down and get those monies allocated for contracts sooner rather than later. The State Route 67 at Woodside Avenue Interchange project is scheduled, I believe, to go to bid this summer. And I think tentatively, the thought is it completion late 2021, early 2022. And of course, the Highway 52 improvements is a critical project for this community. Total project cost of $52 million. City's aggressively and actively seeking grant monies at every opportunity. And the $492,000 has been set aside in the general fund. Next slide. Drainage projects. We have 9 drainage projects included in the proposed CIP, $26.8 million total. Next slide. And they include the ongoing corrugated metal pipe storm drain replacement program. We have $1.9 million funded for these types of improvements in the first 2 years of this CIP. In addition, a reminder, the Santee Lake CMP contract was awarded a couple of months ago by the City Council. It's a $2.6 million project that will be happening here in 2021. So combined, you're looking at $4.5 million in investments in CMPs here in the upcoming 2 years. We have a handful of water quality related projects. The storm drain trash diversion is in response to a state mandate. It involves the installation of trash capture devices on all the storm drain inlets here in Santee. We have $1 million allocated for that through 2026. San Diego River bacteria reduction projects, again, required stormwater related projects. And the master drainage study update, it's been a long time coming. I think the current master drainage study was done in the late 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. So there's $500,000 identified to get that study updated. Next slide, please. And facility projects are next, $51.7 million in estimated project costs. Next slide. So some of the key projects, the community center, subject of discussion at the last city council meeting. Just want to make sure the council knows we heard your comments at the last meeting. The proposed CIP was almost fully developed at the point of that meeting, so the project, as reflected in the proposed CIP, is what was proposed prior to that meeting. Staff is working on providing a response and a report back to the council to address the comments that were raised 2 weeks ago. Just wanted to point that out, though. In the CIP, it's reflected as a $12.9 million project fully funded by the end of 2023. Fire Station 4 replacement is a key project for the city. The total estimated cost is $17.6 million. The proposed CIP has $100,000 in the first year for various site location planning costs. Unfortunately, at this point, the balance of the project is still currently unfunded. There's a $275,000 emergency generator project. It would provide for a backup generator at the operations center that could fully keep city operations going in the case of an issue here at City Hall. Next slide, please. Okay, park projects. We have 14 projects totaling $26 million identified in the CIP. Next slide. They include the Town Center Community Park West Field 1 improvements for the softball fields that I previously mentioned. Project cost of $860,000, fully funded in the upcoming year. Includes a total of $21.7 million in trail projects, developer contributions, and a small amount of development impact fees make up the funding, a portion of the funding, $8.4 million. Sandag has $10.5 million identified, and we're seeking some grant monies as well. Next slide, please. Handful of other projects that just don't fit into the other categories. Next slide. A few of them include the permitting and land management system. Total project cost of $600,000. We got the consultant up and running. The kickoff meeting for that project is getting scheduled, so that project will be moving forward very shortly. The San Diego River Corridor Plan, removing trees and brush within the river area, $650,000 total project cost. The proposed CIP identifies that project as 50% funded, 50% unfunded, and the basis for the unfunded portion is the city feels very good about a grant opportunity that we're pursuing with the San Diego River Conservancy. I believe that board meeting is in the first week in July, and Bill Mertz will be attending that meeting. I think we have an actual application already submitted with the Conservancy, and we feel pretty confident of securing some funds towards that project through that program.
Now, quick question on that. Do we need to reach out to Brian Jones or Randy Vopel to see if they can, submit any letters or anything to help us out with the grants?
I think you have a member of the Conservancy Board sitting right on your right there.
Well, I get that. I'm just looking for every bit of help we can get.
Yeah, that can't hurt.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, obviously, and as stated, Senator, chiming in would absolutely help us, but Bill already submitted to it, and we're advocating for those funds. The River Conservancy got $12 million from the state of California, and I believe our application for $660,000, Bill? 660, something like that?
Yes, we asked for the full 660.
Yeah, which is basically to go through and do a lot of management in the river and stuff. So I absolutely, let's ask Brian and Randy to assist.
Great, thanks.
Okay, another new project in the CIP is a citywide broadband master plan. This is a focal area of the federal ARPA monies. What's included in the proposed CIP is $100,000 for a study to identify how best to address unserved and underserved areas of the community in regards to high-speed, high-capacity broadband internet. And then there's $1 million that's plugged in for whatever improvements, whatever work plan comes out of that initial study as the best way to approach the situation in the community and make a difference. Next slide, please. So the next steps, the reminder that the emphasis is on the first 2 years, which we consider to be the adopted budget. All projects will come back to the City Council before any contracts are awarded. And this is the first of 3 opportunities for the city council to discuss and provide direction regarding the CIP this evening, 2 weeks from now on June 9th and on June 23rd with adoption. A couple of other points, with the increased level of general fund support that the proposed CIP has, there's a direct nexus between the operating budget and the capital improvement program. So we'll be bringing forward the operating budget on June 9th, and you'll be able to see at that point how the amount of general fund contributions for the proposed CIP impact the general fund. As you recall, at mid-year in the current year, a couple of months ago, we did identify about $6 million in supplemental reserves expected by the end of the current fiscal year. So kind of a point of reference for the proposed general fund spending that you're seeing at this point in the proposed CIP, and then we'll be bringing you the operating budget so you can see the two side by side in 2 weeks. And one more quick comment. There were a few just minor updates made to the CIP after it went to publication, just involving the location maps and some minor adjustments to 3 project descriptions. Those would be page 6, the gateway signage, page 46, the electric vehicle charging stations project, and page 60, Sportsplex playground improvements. We'll get updated pages distributed to the city council and published online in advance of the next meeting. So that concludes my presentation, and we're here for comments, discussion, questions.
Speaker slips?
We have one speaker. Mary Hyder.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I was really happy to see the American Rescue Plan Act funds are already in the city's coffers, so that's great news. While looking at the paperwork on page 52, I have a question because another something that's a big interest to me is the library. And so on page 52, I want to make sure I'm not reading this incorrectly. It's not funded, and there's a construction cost of $17 million for the library, which would be like over $1,100 a square foot. So is that a typo? Is that correct? What was the metrics used to provide that number? And are we going to just, is this slide telling us that Santee don't plan on seeing a new library for 5+ years? Those are my questions and comments. So it's page 52.
Anybody have an answer for that?
I will take that. Thank you very much for the comment. And yes, at this point, the city does not have any readily available funds to utilize on the library. We are always constantly looking to see if there are opportunities to share, to encourage the county to help contribute to the county library in the city of Santee. But we do want to make sure that it is in our plan, because in many cases, if we want to go for a grant fund, they ask, well, where is it in your plans that you want this? How long have you been looking at it? We need to be able to give a history of how long the city's needed the project, et cetera, in order to apply for future grants. So the speaker is correct. There are currently no funds that are set aside for the library at this point in time.
Okay. Well, the only thing I can add to that is I've been having conversation with Supervisor Anderson on that, because we know that's a county library in the city of Santee. We've been always told in the past that, well, it's a county library, but since it's in your city, you have to build it and pay for it. Well, we're having new conversations that maybe that's not exactly necessarily true any longer. So, Mary, if you're still on and listening, we're working through that. Our hope and our goal is to do something on that a lot sooner than 5 years. If we get all the things that we're hoping for, we might be able to see that in the next couple of years. That's not a promise. It's just a desired outcome that we're looking for. Is that it?
No further speakers.
Great, thank you. Council comments or questions?
Mayor, before we just dive in, can we just note that there are 3 projects where, one for you and 2 for Councilmember Koval, where as they go forward, there are potential conflict of interest issues. So it would be the best approach to have any discussion about those 3 projects first, and then if there is a desire to have discussion, you would recuse, and as would Councilmember Koval. So the 3 are the Prospect Avenue improvements, which is on page 18, the Santee Lakes CMP replacement, which is on page 35, and then the San Diego River Corridor Plan, which includes the fire safety issues, which is on page 77. So if there's a desire for the other 3 to discuss those, then we should do that first. You guys should step out, and then we can all come back and discuss the rest of the issues.
Okay, so far I'm not seeing any further discussion on it.
Well, I actually have a question about it. Since it is the whole corridor,
Yes.
I'm still not allowed to.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then our recommendation tonight is to pretty much accept the report, and then we'll move on to the next one. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. That will take us to, let me get my glasses here. That takes us to before we go to item number 9, we'll take non-agenda public comment continued.
We have no speakers.
No speakers. Okay, then thank you. You want to, I see. That takes us to item number 9, which is well, this is council reports, and we're going to go to Rob first on this. It's a draft letter in opposition to HR 127. I'm not going to pronounce that name because I'm going to butcher it. It's a Firearms License and Registration Act. Rob?
Yeah, I brought this up at the last meeting to just get it on the agenda for this meeting to see if I can get support from the rest of the council to encourage our Congressman Darrell Issa to oppose this bill. It's far overreaching. It is an obvious and aggressive attack against our Second Amendment rights. It's egregious. It's just literally probably not one of it. It is definitely the worst written bill I've ever seen attacking our constitutional rights. And so I'm hoping I can get the rest of the council to sign on to this and get that letter out to Congressman Issa.
Great. I'm going to have some comments also. I imagine the rest of the council will, but we do have 2 speaker slips first.
First speaker I have is Mary Hyder, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks again. Okay, I'm scratching my head again as to why the city council would want to spend its political capital on this letter. California Proposition 63, passed in 2016 by over 60% of the voters. While that is being challenged, a majority of voters in this state and in this country believe background checks are a good thing. This federal legislation tackles gun reform that a majority of Americans desire. I want the council to please explain why background checks, training, and a nationwide registry are a bad thing. These are similar steps a person needs to perform in order to drive a car, get a real estate license, or a notary commission. I would rather the city council spend its political capital on lobbying Congressman Issa and our senators Feinstein and Padilla to support the infrastructure bills in Congress that would afford jobs, improvements, and possibly funds for things like a new library, street repairs, or a fire station that we were just talking about. So again, I'd like to have an understanding as to why this benefits us. Thank you.
The next.
Want to address that at all? Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and take that one first.
There's more to the background checks. It's not just a general background check. You have to have one. It's the insurance policy that has to be put in place. That's an exorbitant amount of money that has to be renewed every single year. 2, the background checks are done. You have to have a psychologist paid for by the applicant do an interview with the person, and/or any members of the family that they deem fit that could possibly have access to anything in your home. The cost of that, once again, borne by the applicant when this is a constitutional right as it is. I think it's an overreach, it's an overstretch, and it's something that should not be allowed to move forward.
Yeah, okay, what I'm going to address specifically is why we would do this as a council. And that is because we do have constituents who are asking us to take a position on this. And since we do represent a large number of people who are gun owners, people who want us to represent them and to reach out to our congressional member, that's one reason why we would do this. And it doesn't matter if it's HR 127 or another piece of legislation. If we have a group of people that are asking us to represent them on this, then it's our responsibility, at least I believe it's our responsibility to represent them. That's why we do it. And next speaker, please.
The next speaker I have is Janet Garvin, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor Minto and council members. In the shadow of this morning's mass shooting in 8 deaths in San Jose, California, and the 230th mass shooting in the United States this year, this city council is discussing sending a joint letter to Darrell Issa opposing gun legislation. As individuals, you have every right to send letters expressing your opinions to your representatives. However, gun legislation is not the purview or jurisdiction of this city council. Your letter may be representative of council members as individuals, but is not representative of Santee citizens at large as a whole, and usurps some Santee citizens of their rights to their individual opinions. I strongly oppose this letter. Doesn't the city have more important work to do? And if you must talk about guns, why don't you ever discuss solutions to the epidemic of gun violence? Thank you.
No further speakers.
Thank you. Any other comments by council? Okay, then. So the recommendation is approve sending the letter. I'm in support of sending the letter. And Sean, do we need a motion on this?
Yes, because it's going to reflect the council's position.
Okay.
Then I make that motion.
Sorry.
Being on
Well,
one
we'll
ask.
say
I
that,
apologize.
We'll say that motion by McNellis and a second by Trotter to send this draft letter to Congressman Issa. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Let's please prepare to vote. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Are there any other council reports? Ron? Laura?
Yes, I have a quick update on CSA 69. As you know, I'm on that advisory committee, and I want to announce that I'm the new chair of that committee. Yay. I didn't have anything to do with it. It was John. Chief Garlow, thank you. So here's my statement. Finally, after much effort, the fee for non-resident service has been raised to $2,500. And my time is up already?
And you're done.
I'll be under 3 minutes. This makes more equitable the fees charged to CSA residents when their transported by other ambulance services and the fees paid by non-CSA patients when they're transported by CSA ambulance services through Santee and Lakeside Fire Departments. This increase more fairly funds these emergency services for all the East County region. Number two, the county is finalizing a report that suggests it may be time the model of governance for CSA 69 changes. It suggests a possible joint powers authority could be formed that would allow the City of Santee and Lakeside and Lakeside Fire Protection District to manage the CSA rather than the county. This potential would allow for the most local level of government to control services for their constituents. This proposal has a long way to go to be fully fleshed out and would require approval from LAFCO, which is the Local Agency Formation Commission. Theoretically, both Santee and Lakeside could support this change if the revenues to operate the CSA follow the services, and the council will be kept aware of any action steps in the proposed process going forward. But overall, we are optimistic with the progress made in CSA 69 thus far this year.
Thank you.
I had a quick question.
I don't know if I can answer it.
No, I'm probably not. But maybe the chief can.
Is your microphone on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. San Miguel is, I guess, part of 69. And are they at the fire station, like right there across the street, over on Pepper Drive, I think? Are they going to be put into this, or are they just going to be on their own?
Well, when you look at San Miguel Fire Protection District, they are a fire protection district. This is a paramedic.
Ambulance only? Okay.
Exactly. So it does overlay their jurisdiction, although it's a completely separate system.
Okay, yeah. It was brought to my attention by somebody. So
They will be partners to some degree and have input, but limited ability to be part of the service side of it.
That's good. I just didn't know if we were going to have to include them in here or not, so thanks.
Anything, Rob?
No, sir.
Dustin?
Just real quick, Mr. Mayor, I want to let everybody know that this weekend is Memorial Weekend, and Monday, Memorial Day, well, I will be hosting a fundraiser at the local VFW hall here in Santee, and all of the current council members will be there, tending bar and raising money for the VFW, along with many other local people from East County, from El Cajon and other cities around. And I'm really excited to help this post get some money back in the coffers, and thank you guys for participating on Monday.
And my shift is from 1 to 2, so.
And
Or a good
mine's
drink,
from
a
2 to
good
3.
beer.
3 to 4.
And I also want to thank the staff for the bundt cakes. Thank you very much.
Let's see who raises the most money.
Again.
Winning.
All right, is that it? Okay, excuse me. Well, this time I want to talk a little bit about Santee TV, and then I'm going to have Marlene talk a little bit about how things are going to shake out between the television station and council meetings and stuff, if that's okay. But just to let you know that Santee TV is part of the public education and government programming system, and it's commonly known as the Public Communication Channel or PEG Channel or things like that, or the government channel. But you know what? Bottom line is, no matter what you call it, we call it Santee TV. And that's coming to us starting in June. And we have, this is going to give us an opportunity to showcase everything Santee, keeping to the rules, of course, to the channel that consists of public, educational, or government content. And then the channel will air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're going to keep everybody connected to the city council and up to date on, like I said, all things Santee. Some of the things that we're looking at putting on that channel are, of course, our council meetings. And if you happen to miss it, well, you get to watch it because we'll repeat it throughout the next couple of weeks prior to the next council meeting. And so then we're also going to look at putting things on there like, let's see, Santee Park and Recreation Committee meetings, Community-Oriented Policing Committee meetings, any breaking news that happens to come out. And I'm not sure, who's our PIO these days? Is it Kathy? So be prepared. You never know when something's going to break. I mean, news, that is. And then Santee City special events, like what Mr. Dadian talked about earlier tonight, the Fido Day, that will be on there. And then we're going to do city council interviews. Don't know what that means yet, so be prepared and be scared. We're going to talk about seasonal activities, like, for instance, the Christmas tree lighting and the concerts in the park and Santee salutes and things of that nature. And any kind of park highlights that we need to do. So, Bill, be prepared. And then, of course, any town hall meetings that come up. Trivia games. I've seen a little bit of that, and that's going to be fun. It's just something to look in on. And
James is going to be running those?
I'm not sure who's going to run those. I think it's just going to be. I think it's just going to be on there.
And I request that Bill Crane host Jeopardy.
No, we're okay, well, that'd be great. And then we may even put up there some how-to videos, and that might be how to host a trivia game or something. So either way you look at it, there's going to be some great things on there. You'll be able to find us on AT&T Channel 99 and Cox Channel 117 or 117. And if you don't have those, then you can always go to our website, and we're going to stream it live for you also. And so we're going to have some fun with this, I think. We've had Bree and Riley out for the last couple of weeks, and they've been filming people and getting folks in there to, add a few lines here and there. And so who knows? It's up to our imagination what we do with it, as long as we make sure that we're informative and people like it. So that's my report. So, City Manager, you want to follow up with any of that?
Mr. Mayor, I think you probably pretty much killed that one. You hit it right out of the park. So, yeah, just a reminder, in case people haven't listened for the first 10 minutes, we are going to be opening up Santee TV on June 2nd. We will have two stations, one on Cox, one on AT&T. AT&T's channel is going to be channel 99, and Cox Cable is going to be channel 117. Cox Cable will start broadcasting at 6 a.m. on June 2nd. We're still waiting on a time to be given to us for AT&T. We will have about 9 hours of programming that will cycle through. So yes, the city council meetings will be easily seen multiple times when we just get things started, because our video library will be relatively small, but we are adding to that on a consistent and constant basis. So that's just a heads up and follow up with the mayor. I would like to say happy birthday to Councilwoman Koval. So she's got her little goodies over there. We appreciate that. The other thing is that this June 5th, we will have a vaccination clinic again here at Santee City Hall for COVID vaccinations. If you know anybody who still needs one, has trouble getting one, have them go ahead and sign up through the county, and you'll be able to get one here at Santee City Hall. Other than that, Mr. Mayor and Council, we're starting forward with the Parks and Recreation Division, are really planning some really great special events, which you've all alluded to already, and we can't wait to get through that. I will tell you that when we get to Santee TV, we will still be under some potential COVID limitations for the first meeting, and I'm sure hoping that Governor Newsom acts quickly along with Cal OSHA to make some changes for us. Other than that, that's my report for tonight.
And happy birthday to Chief Garlow as well.
Oh, sorry. Chief Garlow has a big one, and Mr. Mertz just finished another real big one last week. So it's happy birthday time in Santee.
Well, it's my birthday month.
60.
Wow. Birthday month.
I won't be saying mine.
I don't blame you. Any reports there, City Attorney?
No report, Mayor.
Okay, great. City Clerk, do you have anything for us before we bounce on out of here?
No, sir.
Okay. In that case, then, get back into my mode here so I can give the right dates and all that good stuff. All right, then. So the next meeting will be June 9th, right? All right then. We'll see everybody back here on June 9th. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks. Takes getting used to looking all this stuff. Holy mackerel.